Okay, welcome again, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Once again, my name is Dr. Runne. We're here in my office, Health by Design. We're at 681A Emory Valley Road in Oak Ridge, 37830. And I'm going to say a little bit of an introduction about me, just a little bit. The office name is Health by Design for a reason. I guess you'd expect that. I think of health as being something that we were designed to have. If we pay attention to the way our body was designed, we can pretty much figure out what it's going to take to be healthy. So that's my perspective on things. I believe it's not just an accident that we came out this way. So there are certain things that we can do or not do that are going to create problems or they're going to help us. So today we're going to be talking about posture, ergonomics, and stress at work. And these may be topics that you've heard of before, maybe you've had classes on them before, but I'm going to say some things that are probably contrary to things you've heard, and I'm also going to put a spin on things potentially that you may expect you know what I'm going to talk about, and then it might not turn out to be anything what you thought. We've done already 4 other talks, and they're on video, and they're on the website, and there's a landing page we've got. It's called caleburnay.com. If you go there and sign up, you can get our videos for free. You can also text your name or email to this number, 865-465-2248, and that will get you these videos for free. And I hope they help you be healthier in 2013. So let's get into this. We're going to talk about posture from this time we start to the time we end. So there's a pun there. We're going to talk about when you're a baby, when you're born. When you're born, as a chiropractor, I hear questions oftentimes about what's the best mattress? What's the best pillow? How should I sleep? What posture should I sleep in? Or I hear, I slept wrong, I got a crick in my neck, my back hurts, my mattress, I haven't had a new mattress in however many years and my back's hurting. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too, starting there, because first thing we do after we're born is we sleep a lot. We eat and sleep and other stuff. But when you think about sleep postures, I'm sure someone has probably told you, especially if you've been a chiropractic patient before, don't sleep on your stomach. Who's heard that before? Okay. Oh, good. Almost everybody. So it's still being taught, don't sleep on your stomach. And of course that means they're concerned, you're going to have your head turn and that's going to create maybe a crick in your neck. Well, when you watch a baby sleep, anybody seen a baby sleep? Okay, they sleep on their stomach. Sometimes they have their bottom up in the air. It's the cutest thing. Well, their head is completely turned to the side when they sleep. And they're flexible and they're sleeping beautifully and they're wonderful. Well, I should say there's some exceptions because there's been this scare with the SIDS, the Sudden Infant Death Syndrome, and they would wrap the babies and then they would put them on their back so that they could not, they thought they would be less likely to suffocate, to stop breathing, to die instantly. So that's good motives. But then these babies would have what's called flathead syndrome, where the back of their head would actually be flat because they were stuck lying on their back, and that's not the way a baby was designed to sleep. Okay, so that may or may not cause trouble in the future. Maybe their cranial vault is smaller now and they don't have the ability to develop their brain as well. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's been studies done on that, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Babies sleep on their belly. They sleep with their head to the side. When they start to develop the muscles in their neck and they start getting stronger and they want to change their view, they lift up their head and they turn their head all the way to the other side. What they are doing with that first exercise that they have is creating the curve in their neck. Now, we need curves in our neck. We need curves in our body. I'm going to draw a little stick figure here. We got our head, and we've got our neck, and our upper back, and our low back. We've got these curves that happen. In the neck, we call this our lordosis. This is the kyphosis that we have in our rib cage and our upper back, and then a lordosis again in our lumbar spine or low back. So this curve here, and actually all these curves, they act as a spring. So if you have this bowling ball up here and you've got a spring, so every time you take a step you get a bit of shock absorption, then that actually protects your joints. So that's important for us. That's why we were designed with this curve. Now, sometimes you think, oh, well, I'm supposed to have a straight neck. Well, if you were to have a straight neck, really, it would be impact. Every time you take a step, that bowling ball is going to be impacting on that spine and creating quite a bit of irritation to the nerves as they leave your spine around the joints. Okay? So we need these curves, and the first time we develop this curve is when we're a baby and we're starting to lift up our head and turn it to the other side. And it also it holds that range of motion in your neck. So the ability for you to be able to turn your head is maintained. That flexibility is maintained as you grow older and potentially continue to sleep on your stomach. So guess what I'm telling you? You're allowed to sleep on your stomach. No guilt. No guilt. That's right. A lot of times people feel like they're doing something wrong. They say, oh, I go to sleep on my back, but I always end up waking up on my stomach and I feel so bad about it. You don't have to feel bad about it. It is the healthiest, most recommended way to sleep. There are times where you've already had degeneration happen to a certain extent where now you just don't have that range of motion. And you try and sleep on your stomach and you wake up and it hurts. And that's unfortunate. You may not be a candidate for sleeping on your stomach anymore. That may be something that we could help you with here. But sleeping on your stomach is a pretty good way to go. Let's talk about sleeping on your side. Or why don't we talk about sleeping on your back first? So you're on your bed, you've got your head, and then you've got your neck and your back and so on. Okay. So this space that we've got in our neck and our head, we need to fill with a pillow, right? What's the perfect pillow? Is it those fancy ergonomic pillows from Tempur-Pedic or some other brand like that? Potentially, maybe. But not everybody's neck has the same curves. Yeah. Not everybody's head is the same size. Some people have flat heads, right, on their back because they were babies and they were forced to sleep on their back. Some people have a bigger head in the back, this curve. I've got a fairly large occiput. So my curve is going to dictate what my pillow should look like, or how that pillow should fill the space. So you think you got this, by the way, your head weighs between 10 to 15 pounds on average. So if you've got this bowling ball up here squishing down a pillow, it's got to fill the space between your neck and the back of your head so that you're supported, but you should not be lifting that up. You should not be having, okay, so I'm going to, from the side, here's the back of my head, here's my neck. If I need to fill this space after the weight of the pillow, or after the weight of my head has compressed that pillow, that space is not very much, right? It's a pretty small space. If I was to have a big pillow, I'm going to be like this. Imagine you're laying down, and you're laying down for, let's say it's 8 hours. Think about walking around like this for 8 hours. Your pillow should not put you in this position. You don't want to be in this position for 8 hours, okay? So you need to be in a neutral posture, and that should just fill that space there and support. So your pillow should be soft, supportive, so it's not cutting off the blood supply, but it's keeping your neck neutral. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay, well this completely changes when you're on your side, because now you've got your head, and you've got your neck here, and you've got shoulders, okay? So this space potentially is a lot bigger for that pillow, right? Yeah. So now granted, you're going to be weighted here, so this shoulder is going to kind of be, if you're lying on your left side, that shoulder is going to kind of be compressed, and your head has got its weight. You've got this space, but this is a much bigger space than this way, right? So you want to fill this space to keep your neck and your head in a fairly neutral posture. Think about walking around like this all day. If your head is not having enough support, then that's going to be trouble. Or the opposite, if you've got way too much of a pillow, you're going to be going the opposite direction. Now, I just said at the beginning, you're lying on your stomach, your head's turned. Well, what if you're walking around like this all the time? Yeah, right. I know. But it's still maintaining your cervical curve. I'm just going to have to tell you that's just the way it is. You can do that. When you're lying on your side, these motions in your neck are not as common as these motions. Okay, so maybe that helps. Going from a logical pseudoscience sort of a standpoint here. Okay. Now, everybody clear on this? So what type of pillow should this be? Whatever fits you. So if it's a rock and it's keeping your head and neck in a neutral posture, fine, sort of. You need something soft, so it's not cutting off the blood circulation. But my best advice, this is my own perspective, feather pillows. Some people don't like the feathered pillows because they stick you or they may have an allergy. What I like about the feathered pillows is they really conform. You can bunch it up, make it fit. You can make it flat if you're lying on your back, and it's going to be fairly versatile. When you've got a pillow that's got a contour in it, that might not be the right size for you. And then when you lay on your side, it's a totally different. You're in a totally different circumstance. It might not fit you at all. You may need two pillows. Make your head and neck be in a neutral posture, unless you're lying on your stomach, and then you're allowed to sleep with or without a pillow, whatever's comfortable. Yeah.
If you can manage to get an eider-down pillow, they do not stick. Yeah, it's the inner feathers from a little bird that lives in the north.
The eider. Okay.
So
is that E-I-D-E-R?
And they're very soft.
E-I-D-E-R. So lives nest in the Arctic.
Okay.
They
An
don't
Arctic duck.
They don't have that stiffness.
Okay.
That,
wonderful. Okay.
But they
eider ducks. You heard it here.
Eider
Experts
down,
in the room. Okay.
Eider down.
Eider down.
Yeah, they land their
You have
nest
to order
usually,
them
and then
online,
afterwards
yes, huh?
people go and collect it.
How do you
Big
spell
one.
eider?
Order them online,
E-I-D-E-R.
You can do that, yeah.
but you can't find them anywhere, right?
D-E-R.
I wouldn't say around here. I would
Probably
be
a
very
specialty
surprised.
store.
Feathers.
Okay. Okay, so we've been
I don't
sleeping
know.
and we're growing up, and so now we're going to start to crawl and sit up. So we're going to start talking about sitting postures, proper sitting postures. Okay. I'm going to start adding in, you may be someone who has to sit for long periods of time at work, and you may have to sit in front of a computer, or you may have to talk on a telephone. So we're going to talk about those things. I'm going to pretend like I have a computer in front of me in a minute. First of all, I want you to know how to sit properly. When you're sitting at your station, your workstation, you need to think about the position of your joints. You want to have your joints in a fairly neutral posture, and you want to have them, I'm going to say 90 degrees or greater. So what that means is 90 degrees is a right angle, right? So if you are sitting in a chair, your hips should be level or higher than your knees. So here I am, I'm sitting here, my knee, my hip, I think this is actually just a little low for me. So I could find my
Further
here,
down.
thank you. Raise it up just a little bit. Now, my hip is just slightly higher than my knee now. My feet are flat against the floor. My feet aren't hanging. By the way, if you just can't find the right chair that's going to fit so where your hips are above your knees, but your knees or your feet are still touching the floor, put a box or something underneath so that you can keep your feet flat on the floor. Crossing your legs. This way of crossing your leg is a lot safer than like this. Okay, that has to do with your SI joints. So this is kind of, you can even get a stretch if you want to lean forward. You might get a stretch that way. So for those of you who want to cross your legs, this is the better way. This can be trouble for your SI joints and for your circulation. So people get concerned about the varicose veins. Anyway, all right, so going on from there, we're sitting down, we've got our knees above our hips, we've got our feet flat on the ground, and now we've got a computer, we've got a workstation in front of us. Now, when you've got your fingers up here, we're going to say these are for computer people, you want to make sure that the bend in your wrist is actually kind of like playing the piano. I know not everybody plays the piano, but this is improper. So if you've got your wrists bent this way, then you're actually putting a lot of strain on the tendons and the nerve that runs through this part of your wrist called your carpal tunnel. A lot of people hear carpal tunnel and they think of, surgery. Well, we have two carpal tunnels. It's just part of our body. So anyway, you should have a bend in your wrist that's just slightly downward like this. So your fingertips are just touching the keys as if you're playing the piano. Now, in order to get there too, you have to have your shoulders relaxed. So this table, if I was to have a computer keyboard up here, it's actually much too high for me because I would be likely to be going like this or having my shoulders crop up like this to be able to have the proper posture here of my wrist. So this happens to have this nice little sliding piece here that I could potentially have a keyboard with my wrist properly flexed, just touching those keys and having my shoulders relaxed by my side, and I can work away. Fairly neutral posture here. I'm going to have good circulation for a while. Now, when we talk about your monitor, what you're looking at, if you're reading a book, maybe you can get a stand. You want to have your head in a neutral posture. If you're going to be like this for 8 hours, you don't want to have to be like this. You don't want to be looking up. You don't want to be looking down. You're going to create strain in the muscle. They have to be in one position for a long period of time. That's going to get tiresome. So you want to have the monitor right up in front of you so you can be looking at your eye level, looking right at it. Okay? So maybe you need to put a box underneath your monitor if you don't have a monitor that has an arm that will raise. So that could be a solution. You don't want it to be off to the side. If you're going to be turned to the side like this and working, you're going to create strain as well.
When I do ergonomic evaluations on my people sitting at their desk, I say their eyes should be at 80% of the height of the screen, 20% down from the top.
80% down from the top.
80% up from the bottom.
Up from the bottom. Okay, so when you're looking here, your computer screen's got 20% here and 80% down here.
Yeah, you're looking
I never
straight.
see that anywhere.
Pardon?
People don't do things properly. So that's why we're learning. So if you've never been taught well, then you'll know now. And whether your boss gives you the right equipment or not, you can make it proper yourself. Now, I'm going to pretend that this phone is a mouse for right now. You also want to make sure that you're not having to reach out all the time through your mouse. That's going to cause strain in your back, in your shoulder, and that's going to cause problems eventually. So you want that mouse to be close to you, and you can quickly go from your keyboard to that mouse without much strain or effort. Let's talk about if you've got a telephone. This telephone, if you're going to be on it all the time, you're going to be like this. It's going to create potential trouble in the elbow and in the shoulder. And then people get tired of doing that. They want to do lots of things at the same time, and they're like this. You know that's going to get tiresome. So get a headset if you can. One of those new, not so new anymore, the Bluetooth little earpieces. Something that's going to keep your head and neck in a neutral posture. If you can stay neutral, you're going to be as comfortable as possible. But sitting is not something that we were built to do all the time. So you're sitting here for a long time, let's say 8 hours, you compress the blood vessels now in what you're sitting on, your legs and your bottom, and they may go numb. If they don't go numb, they're still going to have a lack of circulation, and that can lead to problems in those structures that are lacking the circulation. So what do? You get up. And it doesn't mean you have to get up for a long period of time, but you stand up and you let the blood go out and you let the blood come back in. And by the way, your lower extremities, your legs, they don't pump blood out. You have to move. to get that blood flowing out. So stand up, move around a little bit, get the blood flowing, and then you got to be there anyway. Sit back down, make sure you're in a good posture, and continue on with work.
So you're saying the only way we get the blood from our feet back to our heart is by moving.
Movement.
Yeah, my sister wasn't doing that, and her feet were swelling big.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
You
what-
can have swelling for different reasons. Sitting compresses on big blood vessels here in your groin, and that's once again, if I was sitting down like this, there's more compression there, and now I'm more likely to have a lack of blood flow coming back up out of the legs, and that leads to swelling in the ankles.
That's why on an airplane you should walk up and down the aisles.
Yes, get up in the airplane if you can. And drink as much water as you can because they dehydrate you. Yes.
2 quick questions. In the call center environment, it's really popular for people to sit on the exercise balls
Yes.
versus sitting in a chair. So I'd like to hear what you have to say about sitting on the exercise balls. Number 2, follow-up question to that is how often should you get up and move around when you're in an 8-hour shift? Maybe it varies, but what's your thoughts about
I would say, I'll answer the second question first. Getting up maybe every 20 to 40 minutes. Getting up, moving around. I know it sounds like a lot, but you think about it, how long do you want blood not getting to one part of your body? Get up, move around. It doesn't take long. Not a big deal. Bouncing balls, those big exercise balls, if they are meeting the requirements that we talked about, that your hips are above your knees and your feet are on the floor, then that's fine. You're kind of moving around. You're somewhat keeping the blood flowing. You're using your core muscles to keep you balanced there, keep you from falling over. So.
And what about the standing desks? Have you seen those? They have the standing desks, standing workstations now. That would probably be better, wouldn't it?
Standing desks are, that's great. It's an excellent idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you still are going to have to move. And if you are going to be at a standing desk, you want to have something, and if you have to stand, like say you're a factory worker, and you're standing and you're just doing the same thing over and over, it'd be nice if you're on concrete floors to have one of those padded stations you can stand on, protect you from the hard floor. So that's important. But a standing desk, I haven't seen a whole lot of standing desks, but one thing I would suggest, if you have to stand for any period of time, hopefully you get to move a bit. Sometimes you get tired of standing in one position. It's nice to have something that you can put one foot up on for a small period of time, and then you switch and so on. Okay. So it could be better standing. I guess it just depends on that person, what they came in with, what injuries they might have or may not have. So.
Obviously, I like all the rage for a period of time with these desks that had the monitors sunk down inside where you were looking down at the monitor. Obviously, that's certainly contradictory to what we're seeing tonight. Right. That's a bad idea. It looks good, lots of desk space, but bad for your neck. Right.
You want to keep in a neutral posture. If you have to be looking down like this, the muscles of your neck and your upper back are constantly being used to hold your head from falling. So,
very good. Thank you.
And we're going to talk now about learning to walk. So we've been sitting. Now we have to get ourselves up from a sitting position to a standing position before we can walk. So this brings us to lifting. Now, if you watch a baby get themselves up off the floor, you're watching the perfection in terms of proper lifting. So what a baby will do to pick themselves up off the floor. Now, I'm not a baby. I'm not as flexible as a baby. So what I'm going to do is this is what, let's say they're starting down here. They probably, I'm going to skip the baby part. This is how you properly lift. You need to make sure that your knees do not go past your toes, okay? And what that will avoid you doing is harming your knees. This is the weakest position of your knees, right here. So you may have heard lift with your legs, and that's true to a certain extent. They want you to lift with your legs, keep your back straight, and that's, going to protect your back from injury. It's not going to protect your knees, though. That's going to be big trouble in your knees. So what I want you to do, rather, is watch babies, when you get the chance. Watch Olympic powerlifters when you get the chance, and you'll see that their knees don't go past their toes when they get low. And in order to have that position and keep the back straight, you have to stick your rear backwards. So the first thing you can think about doing is sticking your bottom back. That's it.
It's Tai Chi.
Yeah.
Is it? Is that Tai Chi?
It's Tai Chi.
Okay.
That's
So
exactly.
you're going to go back like this, and this is actually called the hip hinge. And yes, they did learn about this watching babies. So they hinge at the hip. This is how you should lift. When you go down to reach for something off the floor, even if it's a pen or a towel, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be heavy. This is what I hear when people have their injuries. They come in, they say, I don't know what happened. I just lifted a piece of paper off the floor and my back went out and I just couldn't stand up. Well, they've probably been doing that for many years the wrong way, and they like this, or maybe they had an injury there that had healed improperly and they tore something with a seamlessly effortless movement. So if you protect yourself, if you lift properly, you're actually going to strengthen yourself and protect yourself for the future. So once again, first thing that happens, your bottom goes backwards. You hinge here at the hips. You go down, your back is straight, your quads are strong in this position, your glute muscles are strong muscles. If you can lift with all the strength that you have, by the way, that's why babies do that. Babies have these disproportionately large heads, and they're not used to walking and moving around, so they have weak muscles. They're going to use their body to its best efficiency. Okay, they're going to use everything in the strongest, most stable way. So that's this: strong hip, strong quads, strong back, strong hips, and that's the way to lift. That's the way to bend over to look in the cabinet. Okay, try and do that with everything that you do to try and get low. Okay, now you can go down like this, get into the squat position, but before you come back up, so you have to be down here for a while and you're working. Well, your knees are going to get tired of being in that position because it's not neutral. So when you're ready to get up, you first lift up your bottom and straighten out this, get your knees back behind your toes, and then you stand up. Right? You wouldn't want to go like this. And this is where the error came with the old way of teaching how to lift. Was they would have you down here, you lift something heavy, you may even have somebody helping you, but you're going like this and going straight up, and you're going to blow your knees out. So now we're up.
It reminds me at the rush that I go to a water class and they say women's hips are really stiff, and maybe that's why, because we don't use those hip joints.
Maybe I'm not. I don't know that women's hips are more stiff than men's hips. Maybe they are. I don't know.
They seem to see a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet. I mean, a lot of people are going to have trouble. Trouble with different joints is a common thing. So, yes.
I was going to ask positions like what you have in yoga, for example, with the crossed legs and.
Okay. Muscle stretch, ligaments deform. So with that, when you want to stretch a muscle, you can stretch a muscle like this, for example, and you're stretching your quadricep muscle. If you were to be in a position, an extreme position of a joint for a long period of time, and that's the caveat. If you're there for a long period of time, the joint starts to stretch. Those are ligaments, and they deform, and then they're loose, and then they're unstable. So that's one of the things that I get concerned about with some yoga positions is, let's say, I'm not going to do it, full lotus. You're sitting down, and your legs are crossed, and one foot's on top of the other, and your knees are really, they're very extreme in their position, and they're torqued. If you're in there for a long period of time, you're going to start loosening up those knee joints, and that will create for instability, and that will create for degeneration and injuries. So be careful with long periods of extreme joint positions. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it would also apply with people who are maybe doing ceramic tile for a living, or people who are stockers in grocery stores. You see them, they've got all the knee protection on. They're trying to protect their knees, obviously, from physically hitting the floor, but obviously they're not squatting properly, they're not standing properly, and I guess that joint, since that joint is overextended, I think the knee, there's damage, no doubt, that's going to occur with or without the knee pads.
There's certain things that we do that we will kind of break ourselves down with. So it's important, if you have a job that breaks you down, that you're able to recover, and that's why sleep becomes so important. We'll talk about that in one of the other videos. If you go to bed sore and you wake up sore, and then you go to work and you go to bed sore and you wake up sore, you're slowly breaking yourself down, and it will catch up to you. And so the idea is to learn some of the things we're talking about to recover before you have to do that again. I can't go into detail unless we're talking about a specific case. Yeah.
On the subject of yoga, there was a New York Times magazine about a year ago that said if you do yoga, whatever age you are, if you keep doing it as you get older, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when you'll injure yourself. That you have to allow for the fact that you get less flexible as you get older, and they had lots of horror stories. This was written by a yoga expert about how you must have a teacher with you to make sure that you don't injure yourself.
Interesting.
So is Tai Chi the same way?
No, that's why
No.
Tai Chi is so much better than yoga.
We got some Tai Chi folks.
It's
Lots of Tai Chi
low
folks.
impact.
Yeah, Tai Chi's really
I
safe.
mean, that's the exercise you were doing where the motion is as if you were sitting on a toilet. You know, she makes us do those 100 a lesson.
Well, we do them up and down, the same way.
Right.
So
And that's strengthening. And it's
and
really
circulating. And,
yes,
yeah.
right. Right. Strengthening, circulating, wonderful.
Yeah.
Tai Chi's
And the
an
motion
excellent
is just
exercise.
like if you were sitting in a chair or backing onto the toilet. You know, you go backwards like that with your bottom first.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, very good.
I'm 74, as some of you know, and I can sit down and get up without any trouble, and youngsters can't do it. Most of them cannot do that. That's Tai Chi.
It's true, a lot of times, and I may have done it on video and you'll get to review it later and then laugh at me, but a lot of times people, when they sit down, when they go to get up out of the chair, they'll go like this to try and get up because it'll kind of help them get out of the chair. They're not using their muscles.
Right.
Or they'll take the armrests and they'll push
Right.
themselves up out of the chair because they just don't have the strength in their legs because they're not using them, because they're not doing the things that we're talking about. So Tai Chi helps that. This is not a Tai Chi video, but if you were to, you should be able to
But it's that
sit,
exercise.
stand,
Yeah.
sit, and that's a great potential, a great exercise for
That's exactly the way the exercise is.
That's what Master Caleb says.
Master Caleb. Okay. So what were we just doing? We were standing. We're not done standing yet. We're not ready to, well, maybe we are. Maybe we're ready to start walking. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that, this is going to be another thing that hopefully rocks your world. We're talking about ergonomics. Ergonomics basically means making yourself fit in your workplace. Well, your workplace may be walking, or you may be alive, and your workplace is just being alive and moving. So we're going to talk about proper foot mechanics. Well, not much. What we're really going to talk about is the insoles, foot support. All right, so people who stand a long time, they may say, oh, I need to have my posture or my orthopedic inserts inside of my shoes for my arch, because I'm having fallen arches or whatnot. Okay, so I got some space over here behind the desk. Here's your foot. We'll say that's the inside of your foot, and you got your toe, and there's your arch. All right, so here we go. That's quite an arch, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so the muscles.
What causes high arches? Because I have those.
What causes high arches? I guess it depends. Maybe something developmentally while what you're doing with your feet when you're growing, or maybe you're a dancer, or it could be hereditary. High arches are less of an issue than flattened arches. That's what people mostly suffer with. Yeah.
Because I get shin splint pain because of high arches.
Well, shin splints can be helped with the True Point. So review that video, the True Point video, but and with a little bit of instruction, obviously. I want to talk about the arch support. When you look at the arch is actually not held up in here. The arch is held up from up here. So the calf muscles, you've got these toe flexor muscles, they come down, they come around, and they attach in here. Okay, so if you were to put something underneath here to lift up this arch, these muscles that are suspending the arch are actually going to slacken. Okay, so if you have a muscle that's slack and it's not being used, then what happens if you don't use a muscle?
Atrophy.
It atrophies, it gets weak. So this weak muscle now is going to allow your arch to fall even further. So you may think you're supporting your arch, you're actually creating a weakness that's going to make your arch even lower. So the arch supports are not something that I recommend unless a person has to be standing for so long that the muscles of their calves are exhausted before the end of their day and they need something to rest with. Okay? So, and maybe this is, no, I'm not even going to say it. All right, so shoes. What are the proper shoes? Shoes should not have big arch support, heavy arch support in there, because for this very reason. Now, I'm going to say with a caveat, ask your doctor, okay? Because it's probably a doctor who's going to tell you, okay, you may need an arch support. Listen and think about it a little bit. Go understand the logic here. It's the lower leg that holds up the arch. Okay, so if you're not using those muscles, you're going to weaken the arch and your foot's going to flatten out. So if you want to raise your arch or support your arch, it would actually be much better to strengthen the muscles of your calf. That means that you could either walk around barefoot, because you're going to be walking around grabbing with your toes. You can walk in sand. You could walk on your heels, your toes, the outsides, insides of the foot for different periods of times to strengthen the different muscles around your lower leg and your calf, your ankle, I should say. But I prefer you're typically we're going to be walking around with shoes most of the time.
I can't work without shoes. They won't let me in the
Right,
door.
they don't let you inside the office without shoes, and you said no shirt, no shoes, no work, no service. All right.
I work in a lab without.
So what would be good to do is find a pair of shoes that let your foot act like a foot, right? Not like a block of wood. You know, I'm going to tell you, and I know I'm not that popular, so I'm probably not going to kill this shoes business, but there are these shoes that have these bows like this, right? That you're walking around on this like semicircle, and guess what it does? It allows your foot to not move at all. You roll, 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 and okay, so a person who's got gout in his toe and they can't bend it, maybe that'd be good for them so that they don't have to bend it. But otherwise, your foot's not acting like a foot at all. You're setting yourself up for problems in the future. The best shoe, this is coming from Dr. Caleb, this is my opinion, is a flat shoe that is wide enough to where you take a step and your foot can expand and flatten out as it needs to. This is a spring, by the way. If you take a step and it compresses, it springs back up and helps you take your next step as you walk. Okay? If you got something under this spring and you're stepping on it, now there's no spring. Now it's just impact every time you take a step. pow, up the spine. It's going to start harming your ankle, your knee, your hip, your low back, and all the way up.
Are those the shoes that you're talking about with the curve that are supposed to tone your women's legs? That you
Yeah, you're supposed to be exercising all the time if you've got that.
So they're bad.
I'm going to say they're bad. Yeah, they don't let your foot. You were designed with a foot that has a spring like this, and you're turning it around, and you're just going to roll on those feet. That's not going to last very long with good.
Suppose you have absolutely flat feet.
Yes.
Then what? Just buy yourself a pair of shoes, forget the inserts and everything.
What is it going to serve you if you have a flat foot
Yeah.
and you artificially put an arch in there? How are you helping yourself? I mean, logically, with the logic we just used, how would lifting up this arch help at all? You're going to still slacken these muscles that are already not working very well because you've got a flattened arch, but it's not going to change anything for you, except maybe it irritates you because there's something on the bottom of your foot that's constantly pressing and maybe cutting off circulation there to the bottom of your foot.
And yet, you know, you have these orthopedic guys that tell you you need a insert.
Yeah.
I've been wearing inserts now for, I don't know, 10 years or something like that.
Has it helped you? Do you feel like you got some sort of benefit from?
Well, it may be just psychological, but I mean, heck, I went without inserts for, what, 50 years or something
Right.
like that. Mm-hmm.
Now, this happens. I have patients who have flat feet, and I don't give it a whole lot of attention, but they'll talk to me about maybe some pain, and I'll check the muscles of their calf, and I'll find that they just have horrible muscles that are just tight, bound up, they're not working, they're weak, and I will work on them and allow the circulation to happen again, allow those muscles to start functioning well again, and they start telling me, man, I feel like I see an arch developing in my foot. And great, that's wonderful. Maybe there was something that happened as you were a child that you hurt your lower legs, your calf muscles, and your arch fell. And then you lived with it, and it's probably once we get to a certain age, things just stay kind of the way they are. So it may not change. There may not be hope in giving you an arch, a natural arch. But why? You know, this arch is here as a spring, and you just put something under there, even if you don't have that. I mean, you don't have that arch anyway. Putting something under there to make it look like you've got an arch does not make it a spring.
Right.
It's not gonna make a difference in terms of, helping you with impact support. The reason that arch is there in the first place.
We're talking about having shoes that let your feet act like their feet. I think as we get older, our feet get wider or grow, and I was delighted to see on a sign at Prestige Cleaners that one of the services that they offer is those
Stretched
stretchy
shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can happen, and as our feet fatigue, they'll also flatten. So even throughout the day, you start out with a higher arch than you will at the end of the day as your foot fatigues. So it's nice to be able to have that space in your shoe so it's not compressing on you and cutting off the circulation.
Well, it's great that men's shoes are made this way.
I know. All right, so I was
Well,
going
for
to get into the big problems with women's
Yeah.
shoes. Every woman should know that heels are unhealthy. All right, heels are terrible. Think about. I mean, would you walk around like this all day long without the heel? When you are up on your toes, it changes the position of your pelvis. It actually turns your pelvis under, and so maybe that's why it's so fashionable, because it makes the woman's natural curves accentuated. Okay, but now you're creating this extreme arch in your low back that can potentially and eventually it's going to cause problems to your low back. That's not.
So what does it do? It tilts what?
It tilts your pelvis, and then it creates a hyperlordosis, an extreme curve in your
It
low
shakes
back.
the calves.
It does
But
shake
at our
the
age,
calves.
I mean, who are we trying to impress? And
Okay.
wearing heels with goodness sakes.
Well, the point is, it's not a natural posture,
Mm.
and it's not healthy. And so women have this I mean, they are kind of forced to try and look beautiful all the time, and they've got to be submitted to these standards that somebody says your shoe should be very narrow, and it should be, your foot should be compact in there, whatever I don't know who came up with this stuff, but it's there, and I'm sorry. So you might have to be a pioneer and say, you know what, I'm gonna let my foot be a foot, and get some of those 5-finger shoes. You know, the ones that you fit each toe into its own pocket. That's the closest thing to walking around barefoot without walking around barefoot. Yes.
That's what I was going to ask you about. It was the Vibram, VIBRAM, the 5-finger shoe that came out in 2007. Is that, I mean, they're not as fashionable. They look good if you're a hiker or a runner. You're not going to wear it with a suit, no doubt. But what's your ergonomically, and or is that almost the perfect shoe?
Vibram.
As far as a flat shoe, just as good as a regular flat shoe?
Maybe. I mean, there are things that are irritating about wearing Vibrams. For instance, you walk through grass and it's going to stick between your toes, and they're not. You feel everything that you walk on.
I see.
I think that Vibrams are the closest thing to being barefoot.
I see.
And that's great. But you know, we think of ways of working around our planet, like we put clothes on, all right, and that's to keep us warm. There is some function to that besides modesty. So shoes also have a function, and that is to protect our feet from the surfaces that we walk on. So if you have something flat that is going to protect the bottom of your foot, but your foot still gets to work as a foot, great. I mean, that's what I would say is ideal. I'm not going to say Vibram is the perfect shoe, because it depends on the situation. Mm-hmm. So what are you using that shoe for?
I grew up on a farm in North Carolina, a tobacco farm, and so I would go barefooted from the 1st of May until the 1st of September, and never thought anything about it. And my parents would send me to my aunts in Washington when they needed a break. And so I was hopping up and down on the pavement one day, and my aunt said, "What are you doing?" I said, "This is burning my feet." She said, "We just had a tour of the FBI building and you were barefooted."
You know what else is not normal, but we do this. We make everything around us flat and hard. Perfectly flat. And you know, our ankles and our feet were designed to be able to adapt to differing terrains. Exactly. So walking around barefoot in the grass, or walking around barefoot in a soft area that's not going to hurt your feet, that's going to strengthen your ankles. It's going to strengthen your toe muscles. Mm-hmm. It's going to strengthen your foot. It's going to protect your balance, keep you from the likelihood of falling. So there's so many benefits to walking around barefoot, and we have these hard, flat surfaces, and that actually is damaging to us. Wow. It does wear us out. It wears us down.
Not a great idea to maybe give strong consideration to not having hardwood floors, ceramic tile in your home where you're doing most of the walking. I would guess it'd be better to have carpeted.
I wouldn't go that far, because you could put slippers on.
Okay.
What I would say is, when you get a chance, take your shoes off and walk around, play in the grass. You know, you let your foot be a foot again. Let it be able to adapt to the surfaces outside. That's what I would say. I don't think you have to. I mean, it's easier to clean a floor that's smooth. Sure. There's less allergens in the rug that are in the floor when there's no carpet. So there's weigh your benefits. I'm going to tell you to be logical and also be you. So
there's cork. Cork has cush.
Oh yeah, they're.
And wood has a surface.
We get into all kinds of awesome subjects on these. Yeah, you can put cork on the bottom of your wood floors, and then there's more flex.
Wow. That's a great cork floors.
There are floors that they make for big factories that are actually flexible and rubberized, and great. That's helping. That's helping the situation. It's still a hard, flat surface, and if you got to stand for all day long, it's going to cause trouble. But we do the best we can. And that's what I'm trying to get across. If you understand the logic, then you can adapt to your situations and you can do things that are the best in your circumstance.
And there are sandals that are cushy
Sure, there's sandals that are cushy.
and flat.
Yeah. Okay, so we were walking, we've lifted. I'm trying to think if I have missed anything in our life that we do.
Getting out of bed.
I'm sorry?
Getting out of bed. You should swing your legs
Getting.
over.
Yeah, getting out of bed or getting into the car. Those are good topics. I wasn't going to talk about that.
Well, driving
But-
is an ergonomic experience.
Yeah, driving is an ergonomic challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I can't change the manufacturers, what they do. So if you're sitting in a sports car, your hips are going to be way underneath your knees. You're going to be sitting on the floor, essentially. If you're driving in a van, you may be... when we got a van, I thought I'd never drive a van. And when we got kids, we got a van. And, man, it's so comfortable. You actually sit with your knees below your hips, and you're upright, and you're looking at everything. And instead of being I had a little car when I was young, and I was on the floor. And you're like, I wasn't that extreme, but you're like this. And anyway, cars have their own set of problems. What we will mention, let's see if I can do this here. When you're getting out of the car, if you're having trouble with your hip or your back, you can protect yourself by you open up that door and you swing both your legs out together. And then you help yourself get out. So putting one foot out at a time, you're going to create more strain. Just think, if you're trying to get up off the chair with one leg, you may be able to do it, but you can create strain, and that's going to torque on the pelvis, and that may cause you low back pain, hip pain, any of that stuff. So to protect yourself from that stuff, swing both your legs out, then get out. When you're getting in, you stick your bottom back as you're in the door, and you sit down, and then you bring your legs inside, right? Same thing as you're getting out of bed. It's a good idea to let both your legs swing off, and that actually will help swing you around and get you up to get up out of bed. I don't know if that was very descriptive. You're lying down.
I get it.
Okay, good. So, does anybody have any questions up to this point of anything I've talked about or something that you're curious about in terms of proper movement, proper lifting, standing? Well, there is one thing we haven't talked about yet, but any questions? Okay, proper standing. We hear about this posture word and we think, oh, stand up straight. Somebody was poking me in the back or somebody was pulling my shoulder back and telling me stand up straight. All right, don't slouch. Well, it's hard to stand up straight when everything in you says go like this. And especially, we sit down and we have our eyes in the front of our heads and we do things out in front of us. So our natural tendency is to have our shoulders curl in and our head comes forward and then we end up like this, right? And this is our posture. So this is what we do every day. So why shouldn't this be our posture, right? Well, if you have to think about it, if someone's saying, stand up straight, don't slouch, and you go, okay, here I go. And then as soon as you're not thinking about it, you're back like this. So you've got to develop yourself in a way that is going to give you a proper posture and you don't have to think about it. So I'm going to give you a really fun exercise tonight. And this is going to show up some problems that you may have in your shoulders or your low back. This will bring out problems, but if you can do it, then you're going to strengthen your posture. So I'm going to get myself a little dirty with the dry erase here. You're going to stand close to a wall, maybe 3 or 4 inches, your heels are 3 or 4 inches away from the wall. You're going to let your back touch, then you're going to slide your chin back. Slide. So the back of your head touches the wall. Then your elbows will touch the wall, and then the backs of your hands. And then you're going to do angels, like you were doing snow angels in the snow lying down. Come up, hands touch above your head. Down as far as you can. Now the whole time you're concentrating. My hands, my elbows, they're touching the wall. That's all you're thinking about. Even the back of your head too. You're going like this. Alright? Now if you can do 30 of these, you're doing great. You're going to do real good with your posture. if it's really easy, you can put your heels to touch and then touch your bottom and then do it. Try and keep your back against the wall, and it'll become more challenging. All right, now when I step away from the wall, when I've been doing those angels, my pectoral muscles are stretched. They've been stretched with what I've been doing. The muscles of my upper back have been tightened and strengthened. The muscles here in the front of my neck have been stretched, and in the base of my head they've been stretched, and the opposite muscles have been strengthened. So that puts my head over my shoulders, it pulls my shoulders backwards, and I just stand up straighter, and I'm not thinking about it. This is what we're all told. Keep your shoulders back, keep your head up. If you do this exercise, you will develop yourself a good, proper posture without having to think about it. Now I'm going to give another example for people who cannot do that, because some people have trouble with their shoulders and they just can't even get to touch, okay? So essentially what we're trying to do is open up our rib cage and expand. So you think about your thumbs going backwards, and you just open up, you keep your shoulders back, you keep your head back, and you take deep breaths. And it's a good idea to take deep breaths when you're doing the wall angels too, but if you take deep breaths and you're trying to open up this way, you're going to strengthen. Once again, you're tightening and strengthening the muscles of your upper back, and you're stretching out the muscles of your chest, and you're going to help with that posture if you've got shoulder trouble and you can't do the wall angels. Okay, so there's a really important reason for standing up straight. It's not just because it looks good. It's actually an indicator of health as you age. The more erect your posture is as you age, the longer you're probably going to live. And I want to tell you why. And this is going back to function, oxygen. You know what they say? They say sitting is the new smoking. And that's because when you sit down, you start to do all this stuff, and we end up like this, and then we're like this all day long, and we're closing in on our lung capacity, and we get what's called COPD. And you know who else gets that? Smokers. That's why they say it's the new smoking. It's the scar tissue that develops that doesn't allow us to expand our rib cage and our lungs. So if you lack oxygen, let's say you have no oxygen, how long are you going to live?
4 minutes.
Maybe 4 minutes if you're really good at holding your breath. So if you're having a lack of oxygen throughout the span of your life because you're curled in like this, then you're gonna start degenerating faster. So if you can keep the amount of oxygen that you're able to breathe to its full potential by having an upright posture, you're likely to live longer and be healthier. So it's not just about looking good, it's about getting enough oxygen. And that goes back to circulation, because it's your blood that's going to bring that oxygen to the cells that are needed. So we keep going back to this idea that you've got to have good circulation, but you got to be able to get the right stuff in that circulation, whether that be from your nutrition or the oxygen that you're able to breathe because of the way you're standing or sitting.
It's harder for women because we're top heavy.
It's harder for women. Yes, it may be. It may be harder for women. And men just naturally have more muscle as well, upper body, when we're talking about our upper body. So women might have to try a little harder. Do the wall angels. The nice thing about women...
Tai Chi does that too.
Yeah, Tai Chi does that
We
too.
have exercises.
I should have... I'm
It
plugging
seems
Tai
like
Chi all
proper
the time.
posture would give all your organs more room and
That's right. And which
proper
organs are we talking
placement.
about mostly? Is we're talking about our lungs when we're talking about standing upright. And we're talking about our diaphragm, which helps us to breathe as well. And of course, everything that's below that is going to be affected as well. So yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely
The
true.
Tai Chi exercises that do exactly what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah.
If you do Tai Chi, you'll live forever.
They do have good exercise.
we do it
That's
all.
right. Tai Chi is
do
very
it all
healthy.
every week, so it's on our mind.
I think I've said it like 15 times this video. Tai Chi. Okay.
You can write our website on the.
We're advertising.
Any questions about wall angels?
So that strengthens your diaphragm, you said?
It will help to let your diaphragm function properly. Strengthening your diaphragm happens with deep breathing. So,
So if you sit down, like in my case, I'll sit down in church, cross my legs improperly, and sit improperly, and it's no wonder I get tired, because the circulation is poor, and it's habitual, and I'll be breathing improperly, not breathing properly, and sitting wrong. So no wonder I'm falling asleep and wondering why I haven't I slept enough, drank enough water, ate enough food. I'm just sitting there dying, but
yeah, you're choking off your oxygen.
I thought it was the sermon.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a question. You said that modified one where you do this, is that also against the wall?
No, that can be just in the air.
Okay.
All right, so you're just opening up, expanding your lungs and trying to.
You stay that way, or do you?
You take a few deep
I do
breaths,
that when I walk.
holding.
Do you?
Deep breaths. Okay. So we talked about posture. We talked about ergonomics. Stress, this is kind of an afterthought. If you are having less strain on your body because you're having proper posture, if you're getting enough oxygen, if you are in less pain, your stress levels decrease. It just happens automatically. So I'm telling you, stress at work, make sure your posture's good. If you have to stand or you have to sit at work or you have to lift, make sure that you're getting your rest periods between sitting so you can stand up, get the blood flowing, move around just a little bit, and work becomes a little bit more pleasant. And that's not just for physically, but it works on your psyche as well. So I know that's just, like I said, maybe a twist, maybe you're expecting something different, but it's kind of an afterthought. Like I said, if you can improve the situation that you're in, your stress levels will decrease. So.
I do have a question.
Yes.
When you sit, there are two ways you can sit. You can sit up with this coming forward, which is the natural curve, I suppose, or you can slump like that.
That's right.
I just read an article where they were talking about slumping, and they said slumping is the in thing.
Excuse me. Let me tell you about slumping.
I thought you're supposed to have a support.
You have, here we go again, support. Be careful with support, because you may not be using any muscles if you're supported, and then those muscles weaken and you can't use them later. So, yes, support can be good, but it can also be it can increase the problem. So, I'm going to talk about arthritis with your back, pain in your back. It actually, when you sit upright, you're trying to balance the weight between the discs of your back and the joints of your back, and you'll actually, that balance is pretty helpful for your sustained health in your spine. People are afraid of discs bulging or actually protruding and causing trouble into the nerves. If you are to slouch, you're actually taking the pressure off the joints, and you're putting it more on the front, which is where our discs live in our low back. So this will take the pressure off your joints. So if you have arthritis, it may feel pretty good, and so slouching may be the in thing, because now my joints are open and they're a little more relaxed. That's the way I sat in college, like this, listening to my lectures. Okay, but I'm not telling you that's the right way. I'm not telling you that's healthy. If you were to have too much of an arch, and you start to hurt the low back. And the tendency sometimes is for us to, we get weak and then we start relying on our joints instead of relying on our muscles. So I'm going to mention one more thing about standing. If you have to stand for a long period of time, it's good to think about turning your pelvis under, just so that you have a slight flattening of the curve in your back, because that's going to balance, once again, it's going to balance your weight over the discs and the joints. So you've got a vertebra here, and it's who cares what a vertebra looks like? You got these discs in between. They're cushions. Okay, so you're going to you're going to want to balance here, right? You don't want to put too much weight on the joints in the back because that's going to create irritation to the joints, potentially. You don't want to put too much pressure on the front because it's going to irritate, potentially, the disc. You want to be well balanced. So in order to do that, when you're standing, if you slightly turn your pelvis under, then it forces, actually what I would say is, don't lock your knees. If you slightly have a loose bend to your knee, you're kind of like hovering in the center of your knee, your pelvis is going to turn under automatically, and that'll keep you from doing the opposite, which is locking the knees, letting your back sag or arch, letting your belly sag, and then relying on your joints to hold you up, which is going to tear down the joints, your knee joints, your low back joints. So that's kind of a, if you have to stand for long periods of time and you're starting, well, hopefully you don't get to the point where you're tired, because that's hard to do anyway. Slightly bend,
So
pelvis tucks.
you say pelvis tuck, and like in Tai Chi, we talk about dropping the tailbone. Would that be kind
Yes,
of
exactly.
similar?
You think about it, here's your tailbone, you're dropping it, that's turning the pelvis under, that's taking the pressure off the joints, and hopefully you're balanced. You wouldn't want to be like this either, okay? So that you're just balancing there. You shouldn't be, no one should be able to look at you and say, oh, you're floating on your knees, or your knees are bent, right? It should just look natural.
When I had my store, I remember noticing that older women in particular tend to put their pelvis forwards when they stand.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
Well, I don't know why that is, but it might
it's
have something to do with the
easier.
heels. Because the heels is an accentuation of what we just talked about.
It
Your
is.
knees are locked, your low back is accentuated. Anyhow.
Is it?
I hope you all got the logic of what I was talking about. I hope this was helpful for you to understand why for your postures, or for or against supports. Well, if you want more information, you can go to my website, which has been erased here, Health by Design OR for oakridge.com. And yes.
When you walk, how does every foot, I want you to describe how you walk, how you should walk.
How you should walk?
Yes.
All right.
No, it's
Here we go. You ready? Watch carefully.
okay.
I'm kind of joking.
Heel to toe.
Your heel to toe. When you walk, your heel goes down first, and then your foot flattens out, and you push off with your toe. All right. That's great when you're walking. When you're running, if you're going to run, you're coming up out of the running by definition means both your feet are in the air at some point in your stride, and you're going to slam onto that heel, and then roll around. And there's no protection from the impact. The impact's going to come right up into your hip, into your, well, actually that's long distance runners. The first place they get injured is their hips. It's going to go to your ankles too and your knees, but that's not proper for running. Proper running should be more of a flat sort of where you land flat on your foot. And you didn't ask me about running, but your foot, like it's supposed to be a spring, you land flat on that spring, and it helps spring you up after you've landed.
Okay.
So,
now, as you get older, what I find myself doing is I find myself not getting up there. I'm sliding, shuffling. All right.
Parkinson's is one thing that can cause this trouble, where you don't have your brain doesn't tell you well when to start and stop. The part of your brain that's your thalamus that's supposed to help you with that starts being destroyed. So the tendency is, if you can lean forward enough, then a reflex will take place to keep you from falling, and your foot will come forward.
And that's exactly what I'm doing. My kids are telling me that I'm leaning forward as I walk, and
Yeah.
I should be up straight.
Right.
And so the leaning forward is probably accelerating or promoting that shuffling.
Yeah, leaning forward is just allowing you to do less work. It's almost like going down a hill. you lean forward and it's like you have to catch yourself, but you don't have to use the muscles to lift up your leg and push you through. Okay, so that's like Parkinson's is an extreme case of that, and you'll see people like shuffling. Same sort of idea, because it's a reflex rather than a conscious effort to move those feet. Another reason why people shuffle is because they don't have balance. So they'll start to lift up their foot, and this ankle really doesn't have balance, and they may fall. So if you can shuffle, you're keeping both your feet on the ground at the same time. You're more likely to stay balanced. So you may need to. I know you're doing Tai Chi, and that can help with balance exceptionally well. But you may think about trying to balance on one foot.
And what's happening to my Tai Chi is that whereas before I was able to stand on one leg and kick, now I'm finding it hard to balance on that one leg and kick. And every once in a while I'll just foul up and not do it.
Here's what I want you to do. I'm not your doctor. Here's what you can do. You can stand in a doorway and be ready to catch yourself in case you lose your balance, and you stand on one foot. And then when you can do that pretty well and you're not falling, if you feel like you're imbalanced, and you're going to strengthen your ankle doing this.
Okay.
Then you close your eyes. I'm not balancing very well, am I? I can feel myself swinging around.
Oh, if you close your eyes.
Class.
You could, but water's got so much stimulus that it's giving you. It gives you more information, so it's not as good for balancing as being just in the air. So that's where I would start. The other thing I would tell you is walk barefoot on uneven surfaces, and you're going to strengthen your ankle, and you're going to get more sensation that will create pathways for strengthening your ankle to different positions.
Oh.
So that could be helpful.
I just happened to agree.
That's a great thought, and I guess it probably still is on video anyway, so maybe we'll keep it.
What
They
went
say
through my mind?
falls are huge injuries for the
Falls
elderly.
are right,
Yeah.
right. So,
Right.
That's
What-
how my mother died, and she fell,
Lots of people do.
hit her head and
It's
fell.
not good.
yes.
A flash went through
One
my
out
head.
of 4 people.
We now have fire ants,
Okay.
so we can't walk on them. We've got to be careful about walking.
Where you walk, that's right. Yeah, find a safe place to walk barefoot.
I heard a lecture about slip trips and falls the other day, and the lecturer said that 1 out of 4 people who fall and break their hip die within a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
We were talking about
It's
pillows.
complications from it, from what I could
Right.
gather.
Right.
You have any quick
It's a
feedback?
huge
on stuff?
deal, hip surgery.
That's right. Or infection setting in, or the fact that they can't move, and the psychological impact of that, no longer being able to be independent. All that plays a
Well,
part.
I'm 73, and before I started taking Tai Chi, now I can stand on one foot in the shower and wash the other foot. I've never been able to do that
Wow.
until I started taking Tai Chi.
That's great. That's great. Yes.
One other quick question I had. There's several different pillows out there we looked at. There's the My Pillow that sells for like $100, big infomercial pillow. There's the Sobakawa. There's the water-filled chiropractic pillow. With everything, you have a preference? You already said the one with the feather pillow. So that, in your opinion, that's better than those other 3?
No. You may find that the water pillow just fits you perfectly, and somebody else, like your wife, may feel like it's just awful. So you need to find what works for you, and that's what we're talking about. Everybody's got different widths, shoulders, different size heads, different contours. So you need to find what works for you. I just said feather pillow because it easily matches your contours.
Gotcha.
But
That's a big thing. Find one that will fit you.
Yeah, I'm not selling anything. I
Understand.
want you to understand why, and then be able to make informed, educated decisions from that.
The reason that eiderdown pillows are so expensive, I'm a birder, but eider ducks nest in the Arctic, and they line their nest with this down that they take from under their feathers, the fine stuff against their body, and then when the nest is over, people go and collect it, and that's the only source of it. And so it's very expensive to.
It takes a lot to make a
$100
pillow.
or something.
Yeah,
A
they
pillow
don't
is
need to
very
take-
expensive.
They don't need to kill a bird.
Yes.
You were saying sleeping on your stomach is maybe the healthiest way
Yeah.
to sleep.
What's the next way? No, go ahead and ask your question.
What kind of, I don't remember you saying what kind of pillow to use for your,
If you're lying on your stomach,
you don't
you
need
might not need a pillow at all. If you have trouble with your neck,
Does your face end up like this in the morning?
maybe. When you lie without a pillow, your head's going to be turned fairly far. If you have trouble with your neck and you can't turn that far, if you were to put a pillow underneath, you'll actually your face will be on the mattress, but it'll keep your head from turning as far. Or you can put a pillow underneath your chest, and the same thing will happen. Your head won't have to turn as far to land on the mattress, and then you might. People, they get on my chiropractic table and they're lying on their stomach and, oh, I could sleep here, because no one can sleep on their stomach.
But you've got a hole where your face can go.
Exactly. So it doesn't make you turn your head to the side. If you got neck trouble, that's going to be, I mean, a lot of people, they realize they have neck trouble because they can't sleep. Their head's turned to the side, they want to sleep on their stomach, but they can't turn their head and they get a sore neck, and so then that might be enough for them to come see a chiropractor.
Well, now,
Never slept on this.
balancing between support causing something to atrophy
Yes.
and the fact that I have a stiff neck on one side, do I want the pillow to fill this whole area?
When you're asleep, you want to not be using any muscle.
Yeah.
You want to be relaxed.
Right.
So in that case, support is fine. You're resting. That's the point. So fill the space. You don't want your muscles to be tight at night. So that's okay. That's a great question. Good.
We didn't talk about hard or soft mattress.
Yes, we didn't. Mattresses, the ideal mattress is going to be firm because that's supportive, but it's going to be soft to the touch so it does not cut off your circulation. Okay, so that can mean different things to different people. All right, so my wife likes a softer bed than I do. I need to have it more firm. So that, there are companies that have made a lot of money changing one side's firmness as opposed to the other. Fine. You gotta be comfortable. That's important. You gotta keep circulation. So soft to the touch. Maybe if you got a mattress that let's say you can't get a new mattress and it's sagging, put a
I feel like I'm slanting in my bed. What is that?
I'm not sure, but let me finish this just a second. If you have if your bed is starting to sag, you can put maybe a piece of plywood under there, make it firmer. If your bed is too stiff, you can put a topper on that, maybe like an egg crate topper, or maybe a Tempur-Pedic sort of a topper. And those are fairly cheap and really can save you a lot of discomfort in the morning after you hadn't slept well, or something circulation's being cut off. Now, if your bed's slanting,
It feels like I am. But see, when I used to go to a chiropractor, when I did, they check your leg length,
yes,
and he'd always pull my legs to the side, and I think that feels totally foreign.
right.
Because it feels like he's pulling them this way.
Yeah, we get
But
used
I
to
guess
being in these
he's
certain
not.
positions, and people say, stand up straight, and you say, I am standing up straight. Or, like in your case, you're lying down, and your legs are turned off this side, your doctor pulls them straight. What are you doing? That doesn't feel right. You know what else happens a lot? You'll see people, and they are in every picture, they're tilted the same way. And you'll say, oh, put your head up straight, and then you'll move their head, and they'll feel like they're going off this direction. So that has to do with proprioception. That means there's some injury going on in here, some error happening in the nervous
But
system.
I feel like my bed I'm slanting on a hill.
Well, your bed might be having you slant. I don't know.
Check the wheels or whatever.
There is an occasion where it's kind of nice to have a slant in your bed, and that is if you have swelling in your feet, and that's a common problem for you. Then you can put bricks underneath the footboard and raise your feet higher than your head, and that will allow gravity to put the fluid or the blood back towards your heart without any work, and that allows you to wake up without
Just put a
swelling in
pillow
your
and my
ankles.
feet swell.
No,
And then
you
you
can
can
do
take
that
it out.
too. You could do that
Did
too.
you know in Little Old Oak Ridge, right over the Solway Bridge, there's a company called the Clinton
Clinton
Mattress
Bedding.
Company. It's a world-class mattress company. He makes to-order mattresses for basketball players, for all kinds of people.
We're plugging Clinton Bedding now. They're not there anymore, by the way. I'm not sure. I know they're still functioning, but their place on Solway
Really?
is closed.
Well, you can get one that's split down the middle, so you can
Yeah.
each have your remote control, raise your feet.
That's
your
right.
legs.
You-
And he makes it to fit your comfort level or your body natural level of how hard you want it. It's really a good company.
If you think mattresses are expensive, think about how much of your life you're spending on that mattress. You may consider that that's a large portion of your life. You may want to invest some money into that.
That's why it's like, which one, you know?
Which
That's why we
one?
wanted you to tell us.
Basics. I'm just giving you basics. Yeah,
What-
I can't
what
tell you
was
what
it?
brand.
What was hip in Norway when I lived there, which is a lot of years ago, was to do what you were mentioning, just have planks, flats, and then something soft on top.
And you can.
A squish,
There are cultures
you
where they
know.
sleep on the floor and they have very little mattress, or like for example in
Japan.
Asia, Japan, they'll sleep on the floor. And now
They
they've got
eat
these
on the
these
floor.
beds that have they'll eat on the floor too. They've got these beds that are platform beds and they're barely off the floor too. Well, those people have to get up and down a lot and they're
Yeah.
keeping their strength. And that flat, hard surface is supportive but soft to the touch, right? So here we go again. Same basic
All the
principle.
Chinese pillows were
That's what I'm
ceramic.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Not only do the Japanese and Chinese do that, but they also have a pillow that's hard
Right,
and it's very small.
right, and just supports the neck. And I don't know how great that is for sleeping. Really, I can't believe that it's good. Like I said, it needs to be soft to the touch. You're the weight of your head, and you're constricting the circulation underneath that hard pillow.
I thought historically those ceramic pillows were so that you could put money in them and people wouldn't steal it because, you hit your head on it. That was the origin
I have
of the
a-
China pillows.
I like to sleep on my side a lot. So
Yes.
I've heard once that one side is better than the other side.
Yeah.
Because your body is not symmetrical, your organs are not.
Yes, that's right. Your organs.
So
are
is one
symmetrical.
side better than the other?
Left side's better than the right side.
So sleep on this side. Okay.
I wasn't really thinking about it on that.
It is.
Would I?
You would
The-
think
the
that would be
reason why-
opposite, because you're squishing your heart.
Yeah, what I think it has more to do with is your stomach. If you were to have, if you're lying down and you've got food in your stomach and you're on your right side, it actually will. Your right side's high now, and so is your stomach, and now the acid could come back up through your esophagus, and you get those esophageal varices because you're getting injured. That may be an answer. I'm not really sure. All I know is it's the left side. So stomach, left side, right side, back. Back is the least. But you know what I tell everybody? Sleep. You need to sleep.
I
I
am
think
on
I
my
tend to
back.
curl
I
up
have
in
on
the
my
fetal
back.
position.
Well, curling up in the fetal
I don't
position,
know.
that's
I don't know.
sleeping. That sleep is when we rejuvenate, when we heal. That rest is so important. That's when we grow when we're younger. So you need to sleep. If your favorite position is sleeping upside down with your feet in the air, fine. Sleep. I'll tell you what's ideal, but still sleep.
Another talk coming coming with sleep, right?
Sleeping upside down. Yeah, we are going to talk about the importance of sleep in another talk. So, thank you all for coming. Great questions. You've answered a lot of people's questions with these videos. I'm sure that they were asking too. So.
Well done. Good job.
Thank you.